RobinHoodRadio.com and CATV6. Welcome once again to Simply Sports. My name is Andy Williams. Thank you once again for tuning in on this September 11th, 2019. And on this 18th anniversary of September 11th, we will never, ever forget where we were on that awful, awful day. And actually, I do want to start the show with that. I'm not one to go out on the political realm and say too many things, but I feel like this needs to be said. First, you'll never forget where you were when 9/11 happened. I was a senior in high school at Housatonic. I was in contemporary problems with Mr. Beresdorfer, David Beresdorfer, and he had left the room. We were having a study hall. He had been done with the lecture, and I'll never ever forget when he walked back into the room and said, "America is under attack." Now, none of us in the room really knew what he was talking about at the time. And then the bell had rung after second period, and the entire student body, all 560 of us, were paranoid. We were scared. We didn't know what to do. We were paralyzed in fear. And what I'm preaching right now to everybody on here, on this show today, on this September 11th, 2019, is no matter I got to think of how to word this correctly. We need to live every day like it was September the 12th. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? Well, we need to live like we have each other's backs. We need to live no matter what your race is, no matter what your gender is, whether you're straight, gay, lesbian, no matter what your political spectrum is, Republican, Democrat, far left, far right, doesn't matter. We're all Americans. Freedom isn't free. And we need to have each other's backs. We are Americans first. And we are Americans forever. So that's how I'm going to remember this year, the 18th anniversary of September 11th. And I just want to take a moment of silence for all the men and women from the New York Fire Department, the police department, all the men and women that were lost on that horrible day in New York, Washington, and Pennsylvania. Thank you. Okay, moving on to Major League Baseball. Christian Yelich from Milwaukee. This is the big story in Major League Baseball right now. He is out for the year with a fractured kneecap after he fouled a ball off in Miami last night. Now, Christian Yelich, he was in the running for MVP again this year. And he was the front runner, him and Cody Bellinger. Not just for that, but for the Triple Crown this year. But now this. And even after last night's win, which put them now one game back of the Chicago Cubs in the second wild card, This is an awful blow to Milwaukee's playoff chances. And we'll have to see how that injury will affect them in the following 17 to 18 games. In the AL wild card right now, you have Tampa and Oakland that are leading the wild cards in the American League, and Cleveland's a half game behind. I've got a very, very funny feeling that it's going to be a three-way tie for records. And then exactly, I'm not too sure what they're going to do for that. I'm kind of puzzled. Say Tampa, Oakland, and Cleveland all finish with the same records. What then? You'll have to stay tuned. And again, we got about 17, 18 games left. So it's about 2.5 weeks. The NL wild card is starting to get interesting again. And those same 5 teams that have been hovering around the wild card are starting to bunch up again. You have the Cubs that are on top of the second wild card. As I mentioned, Milwaukee's a game back. Philadelphia 2 games back. Arizona, who was the hottest team amongst these wild card until they hit the Mets, now 2.5 back. And the Mets, after 2 straight wins over Arizona, find themselves 3 games back now of Chicago. And also, too, you have Pete Alonso hitting his 46th and 47th home runs, and he's just 5 away from the Major League rookie record of 52 held by Aaron Judge. And he's got about 17, 18 games left. Excuse me. So, is it too little too late? I'm not sure. There was clarity a couple weeks ago, but now all of a sudden, with the Cubs' recent losing streak, and these lower teams are starting to win, and they're starting to get hot again, could we really see that nightmare scenario on which not just one team, not just 2 teams, but 3, 4, maybe even 5 teams tied in the wild card? There remains that possibility. Now the Mets, they still have to play the Dodgers, they still got to play the Braves, but however, there are silver linings in there. They have a couple series with Miami. They have a couple series with Cincinnati. You know, they got a couple big ones within the division. So it's still not out of the realm of possibility that the New York Mets could still find themselves with 87, 88 wins and still possibly get the second wild card. Because like I've said before, I'll say it again, it seems like if you get between 85 and 88 wins, the first team there, you're going to get a wild card spot. And you're going to play in the postseason. So, time will tell there. Some news this morning, which I found absolutely baffling. By the way, if you want to give me a call on the live line, 860-824-4200, 860-824-4200, if you want to talk to me live in studio. United States basketball team in China this morning losing to France in the quarterfinals of the FIBA World Cup. And everybody's saying how huge of a deal this is. Well, to be quite honest with you, I don't find it to be that big of a deal, considering that we went to the World Cup with our, C minus team? Obviously, there was no LeBron James, no Anthony Davis, no James Harden, none of that. Our best player on the court was Donovan Mitchell and Kemba Walker. That was it. Excuse me. But losing to France by 11, yeah, it is a bit of a big deal, but not catastrophic. Now, if they lost in the Olympics, then that's one thing. But this is the World Cup. And yes, they lost in the quarters, but again, it's not the Olympics. It's not Tokyo. We're going to have LeBron. We're going to have all the big names next year in Tokyo, Japan. So don't press the panic button yet if you're a USA basketball fan. In soccer, USA men played a couple of friendlies, and it was all but friendly at MetLife Friday night when Mexico beat the pants off the USA 3-0. Absolutely embarrassing loss. Two totally different teams out there. Now, I understand you're trying to bring up the young guys and you're trying to get the... I understand that. I respect that. But arch rival in your home country, in the shadows of New York City, and you lose 3-0 to Mexico, something's wrong there. Something's very, very wrong. And then last night they played against Uruguay, got outplayed for about 60 minutes of the game, and then the USA woke up in the last 30 to 35 minutes. They scored a goal late to force a draw against Uruguay. 1-1 was the final. But this is raising, again, the same questions about the U.S. men's national team. Are they going to get there? Can they make the World Cup? I hope so. I hope these young guys learn to develop. Because if the U.S. men miss the World Cup again for the second straight time, heads are going to roll. Bar none. And you have to pretty much start again from scratch. This loss to Mexico, unacceptable. A draw against Uruguay, kind of acceptable. But the USA need to start winning games, and they need to start winning games now. They have the funding, they have the skill set. Now they need to start winning. They have 4 matches coming up, home and homes against Cuba and Canada. They should go 4-0 in those 4 games. If they don't, I think something should happen with not just coaching, but I think with the upper management. Because Cuba is not that good of a soccer team, and neither is Canada. Let's be honest. The Canadian men's national team hasn't done anything, and neither has Cuba. So, stay tuned to that. Speaking of Canada, Andrea Betanescu defeated Serena Williams. Yes, she did. In the U.S. Open final Saturday night in Flushing Meadows. She became the first teenager in 20 years to win the U.S. Open since Serena Williams. She became the first Canadian Grand Slam winner in history, male or female. And now, she's going to be ranked in the top 5 in the world. That's one story. The other story is now for the 4th straight major, Serena Williams makes it to a final, heavily favored, a chance to tie Margaret Court for the all-time majors with 24 majors. And for the 4th time in a row, she does not get the job done. So now what are we to make of Serena Williams? Time is not on her side. I believe she's, what, 37? Time's ticking. But every time she gets to this final, we have this problem now, where she cannot finish a tournament. So, congratulations to Ms. Betanescu. And there are a lot of questions now that surround Serena Williams as we head into 2020. On the men's side, Rafael Nadal won an epic 5-set thriller to pick up his 19th major championship. He is now 1 behind Roger Federer for all-time majors. Hard to believe, because everybody thought Roger Federer would be the gold standard. Well, now Rafa Nadal is making that claim to say, hey, I want to be the best. Proved it this past Sunday. And it's going to be interesting too now, moving forward, especially next year. Roger Federer couldn't make the semifinals at Flushing. We were robbed again of a first-time matchup in New York of Roger Federer versus Rafa Nadal. And now, again, much like Serena Williams, Father Time is ticking down very slowly on Roger Federer. Can Roger possibly win one, maybe 2 more? Not sure. Yeah, Rafa Nadal has found, some kind of fountain of youth, and he owns Roland Garros, so time will tell there. Moving on to football. College. My betting was not very good this week. Excuse me. I went 1-4 in my picks. I'm now 3-7 for my year this year. Looking to bounce back big. So here are my 5 games. I think Ohio State will cover the 16.5 against Indiana. Excuse me. I think Penn State will cover the 17 over Pittsburgh. I think Maryland will cover 7 points over Temple. I don't think that should be a problem. I think Florida should cover the 8 points over Kentucky. And I believe that Boise State should cover the 31.5 that they're spotting Portland State on the blue turf. Team that needs to be on upset alert this week is Alabama, as they travel to Columbia, South Carolina to play the Gamecocks. Last time Alabama went to South Carolina, they got their butts kicked. Will the same thing happen 9 years later? It's going to be interesting. South Carolina is playing with a chip on their shoulder. They have a quarterback whose brother passed away a few days before the game started. Quarterback wore his brother's number. Had a sensational game this past Saturday. And now he plays arguably the best team in college football. You know what? I think South Carolina is going to upset Alabama. I'm going to call it right now. I think South Carolina will upset Alabama on Saturday. You heard it here first. So those are my 5 picks. Hopefully I improve on my 3-7 record that I had. So we'll see. On to the NFL. The Antonio Brown saga continues. His release from Oakland. 4 hours later, he signs with New England. There's no tampering involved here. No. Yeah, there was. Come on. Let's be realistic. And now, yesterday, there is a lawsuit filed against Antonio Brown for sexual assault by his trainer. What needs to happen to Antonio Brown is one of 2 things. He needs to go on the commissioner's exempt list, or he needs to just get out of football. Because this is getting absurd now. You know that Bill Belichick and Tom Brady will not, and the NFL will not tolerate sexual assault. Ever. And now that 3-ring circus has now come to Gillette. So within the next few days, he's supposed to practice with the team today. Interesting to see what comes out of that practice today. The games last week, however, I picked, and I actually did pretty good. I was 12-3-1. My 3 losses were the Thursday night game, the Bears, the Jets laying an absolute egg against Buffalo. And speaking of laying eggs, what the heck happened to Cleveland against Tennessee? It was a game halfway through the third, and then Tennessee rattles off 28 unanswered. And the only thing that we're talking about out of that game is Odell Beckham Jr. wearing a $200,000 watch. And the other thing being talked about out of Cleveland were the 18 penalties that they had in that game. 18. That's not going to win you too many ball games. At least they weren't as bad as Miami. Miami lost 59-10 against Baltimore in their home building. And multiple players, wanted to be traded after that game and or released. And who could blame them? I said that Miami would probably be the worst team in the NFL. I wasn't kidding. So, stay tuned to that saga down in Miami. The Cowboys beat the Giants 35-17. Cowboys looked really good. Dak Prescott threw for 405 yards with a perfect passer rating. Saquon Barkley rammed it down the Cowboys' throat in the first drive, and then he was lucky to get 10 touches the rest of the game. The Giants are 1-5 when Saquon touches the ball less than 20 times. He touched it 15. Saquon Barkley has to touch the ball at least 20 to 30 times per game in order for the New York Giants to even have a remote chance of winning. So, those are the headlines from this past week in football. Now for this week. Thursday night game, Tampa travels to Carolina, take on the Panthers. I have the Panthers winning that game. Good old-fashioned NFC East battle, Dallas traveling to Washington. I have Dallas winning that game behind Ezekiel Elliott and that ball control offense. I don't see Washington controlling the ball for more than 20 minutes in that game at all. San Francisco traveling to Cincinnati. Cincinnati put up a really good fight against Seattle, in Seattle. And then San Francisco defeated Tampa, in Tampa. So this is really a hard game for me to predict. I'll take San Francisco in this game. You know, I'm on the fence. I pretty much had to flip a coin before picking this game. So I'll take San Francisco. The Chargers travel to Detroit. Detroit snatched a tie from the jaws of victory in Arizona. I will take the Chargers here. Minnesota traveling to Green Bay. Green Bay, after that hard-fought road division victory at Chicago. Now 5 of their next 6 are in Lambeau. I have Green Bay winning this game. Indy traveling to Tennessee. Is Tennessee for real? They like flying under the radar. I have Tennessee winning a close one against Indy. New England, a 19-point favorite against Miami. No, that's not a college spread. That is an NFL spread. I have New England winning this game. I don't think that they'll cover the 19, but they'll win this game. Buffalo traveling to New York, take on the Giants. Buffalo actually favored to win this game. I think the Giants are going to bounce back. They'll get a win out of here. I see Saquon Barkley touching the ball more than 15 times. I see him actually doubling that, touching it 30 times. And the Giants are going to win a very close and sloppy game. Seattle traveling to Pittsburgh after Pittsburgh absolutely gave up against New England. Seattle after that really close game against Cincinnati at home. It's a West Coast team traveling east for a 1 o'clock game. I know that I picked against it, but I'll take Pittsburgh here. Arizona traveling to Baltimore, same scenario. I don't think Arizona's that good. I have Baltimore winning that game. Jacksonville taking on Houston. I have Houston winning that game. No Nick Foles, by the way. He's out for the year. Broken clavicle. How's that money looking to you? Not so good. Kansas City taking on Oakland. I think the emotional high is over, and I think reality is going to smack them right in the mouth. Kansas City wins that game. Chicago versus Denver. I don't think Denver is that good. I see Chicago winning that game. New Orleans taking on the Rams in an NFC Championship rematch. I have the Rams once again winning in L.A. Sunday Night Football, Philadelphia against Atlanta. That's pretty much a coin flip. I'll take Philly in this game. And finally, Monday Night Football, Cleveland versus the Jets. Cleveland favored by 2.5. Hard to believe that one of these two teams are going to be 0-2. But I will take the Browns in a bounce-back game. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in to Simply Sports. On this September 11th, 2019, we will never, ever forget the men and women that were lost. And for Michael Flynn, Marshall Miles, Brian Oler, make sure you tune in to the simulcast, CNTV6, 7 o'clock and 11 o'clock. We are on YouTube. We're on Facebook. Make sure you tune in to me. And 1, 4, 3.